Hello and welcome back to another UCL Fantasy team selection video. This week we are looking at the first leg of the semi-finals, which leaves us with only 3 match days to go, and this one looks like it's going to be a bit of a difficult one. Obviously there was a lot of upsets in the previous round, and it's leaving a lot of us with 7, 8, 9, 10 transfers to make, or 10 players at least eliminated heading into this round. So there is a lot of stuff to be looking at in order to make the best transfers. So as always, we are going to look at the goal scoring odds, we're going to look at the clean sheet odds, the chances of progression, and the ball recoveries as well, which I think is going to be a very important part heading into these last few match days. So we are starting off with the fixtures, which are obviously already predetermined. We did know what these fixtures would be before the previous round, and it's going to be Bayern versus Madrid and Dortmund versus PSG as well. So Bayern Madrid playing on Tuesday and Dortmund PSG playing on Wednesday. Again, when it comes into the second leg, these are obviously going to be reversed, so it's just something to keep in mind if you are fortunate enough to have bench players coming into this round, which I know a lot of people probably won't without taking hits. So that is kind of how it's going to go. Just a quick thing to look at, and we're going to have a look at some tips going into the semi-final, which could be quite important. So obviously heading into the semi-final, there is a lot of things to consider as we do only have 2 games to look at. We've got a couple of tips or things that I think are important to know heading into this round. Starting off with taking hits to afford an 11. Obviously a lot of us did have a lot of, for example, Man City players, maybe had a lot of Barca players because they did look like they were going to progress before the second leg started. And it's really looking like we aren't going to be able to afford a full, or be able to get a full 15 players, starting 11 and bench with just the 5 free transfers that we've got. If you can do that, obviously that's a very fortunate position to be in, but I think the majority of us aren't going to be able to do that. So in my opinion, I think the bench isn't going to be as important. There is of course only one game after the first match day, so we're going to have Bayern and Real players, and then there's only one game, which is the Dortmund and PSG game. So I don't think the bench is going to be that great because no one's really going to be getting that many points. Obviously there's not going to be too many goals getting scored, so a lot of players are just not going to have like above the 4 points that you're going to be taking a hit on. So it doesn't really seem too worth it to be taking hits to get bench players. So in my opinion, I definitely get that starting 11 in. Obviously it's technically a -2 if you're taking out someone who's eliminated for a starting 11 player. So it's definitely worth it. You definitely want to be making sure that you can get a starting 11 in there, and I wouldn't be taking hits to get players on the bench. I just don't really think it's worth it at this point of the season. Sell expensive players first, obviously that's a given. Most of us already know that. You do want to be selling your expensive players. You don't want to be sitting with someone like Haaland on your bench until the final. It just doesn't make sense to do that. And then focusing on ball recoveries, I think, is a big one. Again, obviously there's not going to be as many clean sheets, there's not going to be as many goal scorers, so you do want to be getting players that if they don't score, they're still going to be getting 5-6 plus points from ball recoveries. So I do think that is an essential one, and we are going to look at that later in the video. So chances of progression, the bookies odds, they are favouring PSG to go through over Dortmund quite highly as well, at nearly 3-1 odds, or just over 3-1 odds. Real Madrid as well, also favoured over Bayern Munich. Obviously this doesn't really matter right now because you do want to be focusing on these fixtures. Obviously Bayern have the home fixture, so you would maybe think that the Bayern players could do a bit better than the Real players. This is obviously more considering when preparing for the final, which is going to be in the next leg. Obviously we've got 5 transfers to prepare for this first leg, and then we'll get a further 3 for the second leg, where you can kind of move things about for teams that are more likely to make the final. So right now this doesn't matter too much, but it is definitely something to consider. Maybe don't stock up on a ton of Dortmund players. Obviously the defenders for Dortmund look fantastic, but you don't want to be stuck with 5+ Dortmund players heading into basically the semi-finals in case they get eliminated, and obviously are favoured to get eliminated here as well. So PSG looking quite good. Again, they have the away fixture, so the 2 teams that are favourite to go through both have away fixtures in the first leg, which isn't ideal, but again, something to consider when preparing your teams. Next up we have our clean sheet odds, and again of course these are going to be extremely low, so we can't really be bringing players in expecting clean sheets. Obviously, as I spoke about before, when you're going for your defenders, you're not really wanting the clean sheets at this point anymore, because the chances are both teams are going to score in all these games, as they are such big games, so you don't want to be looking at the ball recoveries for the defenders especially, and if they can obviously get involved in some attacking returns as well. But we do have them again all pretty similar. Bayern at 22%, Real and PSG both at 19%, and then Dortmund at 17% as well. So again, something that isn't as essential to keep an eye on, but it is something worth considering. Bayern are the highest chance of keeping a clean sheet if you want to bring any Bayern defenders in, but there isn't too much difference between Bayern at the top and Dortmund at the bottom, only 5% in there, but it's something worth noting, obviously when deciding what defenders you're going to go for. So this is when we start to get into the juicy stuff. We've got the goal scorer odds now, which obviously seems to be a lot more important. You do want to get the players that are going to score. Obviously there's not going to be too many goals going into the semi-finals and the final. There's not going to be a lot of different goal scorers, so if someone scores, you want to make sure you've got them in your team, because that could be a big difference in ranking there. So Mbappe is at the top, as he has been for the last couple of match days. Mbappe sits at the top there. Kane in second, and Vinicius Jr. tied with three other players in third place, with Vinicius, Bellingham, Füllkrug and Asensio all in there at 31%. So looking at that front three, I think the majority are going to have Haaland, so we are going to be looking at another striker. Vinicius Jr. at 31%, Füllkrug at 31%. I think it's more important to make sure you've got the penalty takers in there. I think Füllkrug is the penalty taker for Dortmund when he is playing, which is something to keep in mind. Is Vinicius Jr. the penalty taker for Real Madrid? I'm pretty sure he is. I wouldn't quote me on that though, but I'm pretty sure he does take the penalties. Mbappe and Kane both the penalty takers, so they two are the two ones I definitely would make sure that I've got heading into the first leg of the semis. A couple other ones in there as well. Rodrigo at 28%, another striker that you could possibly go for as a bit of a differential if you're looking to get some rank, if you feel like maybe backing Rodrigo over Vinicius Jr. Gnabry has been confirmed to start. He will be starting. Tuchel confirmed that in a press conference over the weekend. So if again you want to go for another differential, other than Kane, Gnabry's the next best for attacking returns. Sané in there at 25%, and then Dembele down as a striker. Unfortunately, I think Dembele would be a lot better if he was down as a midfielder, but 23% chance of him scoring as well. So for this part, I've put together the best three players from each team for ball recoveries. Again, as I mentioned, the ball recoveries is going to be a big part of the next couple of match days heading into the end of the season. You do want to be getting as many points as possible, and again, with the lack of clean sheets and the lack of goals scored, the ball recoveries could be massive for points. So again, top three here. Bayern, we've got Kimmich, we've got Goretzka, and we've got Leimer, three midfielders in there. For Real Madrid, Nacho, Camavinga and Kroos. None of these guys really seem to be very popular, but they could be some decent differentials. Maybe you'll get a lucky clean sheet in there as well. But the numbers aren't really high. Obviously, you get a point for every 3 ball recoveries, so these guys are really only averaging 1 extra point for ball recoveries. Then we look at the Dortmund players, and this is where it starts to get a bit better. Hummels sitting at 9. Everyone knows, if you've been watching these videos, that Hummels is a ball recovery machine. All season he's been getting some massive points for ball recoveries, so he would be probably my number 1 transfer if you don't have him already. I'd make sure to get him in there. Maatsen in at 2nd, and Schlotterbeck in there at 3rd as well. Again, 2 players that are huge for ball recoveries. Again, wouldn't want to be stocking up too much on these. I wouldn't want to be stuck with 3 Dortmund defenders, and then Cabell, if you've got him in goal as well, that would leave you with 4, because chances are PSG will score and probably both of the games, as you've seen by the clean sheet odds. Then we've got PSG as well. We've got Skriniar at the top. Now, it's whether Skriniar starts or not. Obviously, he's been injured for a good while. He did come off the bench over the weekend. I think he played just over half an hour, so it is one to keep an eye on. If Skriniar is going to play, he will be fantastic for ball recoveries. He has only played 5 matches in the Champions League so far, before getting injured. He did play in all of them, and he was averaging 7.2 ball recoveries per match, so definitely one to keep an eye on. I think if we get some leaks that he's going to be starting, obviously we don't see the lineups, if we get some leaks and if he's in the predicted lineups, I would definitely be getting him. And then Marquinhos at 6, and then we've got Hakimi at 5.2 as well. So I think Hakimi's a very good one as well. Obviously decent for ball recoveries at 5.2 in there, and then massive attacking threat as well. So a little insight as to how I got on in the previous match day. My rank went up massively. I was sitting about 600th, managed to get a big rank increase to 215th, which was fantastic. If you watched last week's team selection video, you did see that I was stuck on one final transfer. I was really up till the last minute ready to just burn that transfer, and then I ended up going for Sabitzer, which was fantastic, a 14 pointer from him, which was absolutely brilliant, and that is absolutely where all my points came from as well. Did transfer in Guerreiro as well, who has been brilliant. I'm hoping he does start again at left wing this week, because then it would save me another headache in terms of benching. Right now I've got 8 eliminated players, so 5 free transfers there gives me my full 11 and 1 bench player, which is great. So if Guerreiro is able to start there, that would be fantastic. And then I've got 1 bench player as the backup. So last week, again, fantastic. Mbappe as the captain was 18 points, brilliant. Sabitzer came in right at the last minute. Again, if you follow me on Twitter, you can see all of the last minute changes that I do end up making, the confirmed subs and transfers that we do go for, because these videos obviously are recorded a day or two before, so the transfers are never final. It's just a really good idea of what I'm going for. But that's how I got on, pretty decent. Obviously the Man City players were a big disappointment. Had 4 of those guys in there, which all have to come out, which is unfortunate. And then obviously the Arsenal guys as well, 2 of those. And we had Kubarsi and Molina, so 8 players in there that have to come out for me. Let's go into the planned transfers. So this is the current plan heading into the first leg. 5 transfers used, and again I want to kind of go quite heavy on the ball recoveries, because it does seem to be a very good method of getting some points. So I've got Kimmich in there for the ball recoveries, of course. Possibly could go for Gnabry. You can see down the bottom the budget isn't giving me a problem for me, which is nice. Kimmich is in there. I've got Skriniar in there. If he isn't going to start, I will go for a midfielder instead. Probably another Bayern player. Someone like Gnabry is probably going to be the pick, knowing that I know he's going to start. Plus, we do see the lineups for Bayern and Real, and no other Real players are really interesting me other than Vinicius and Bellingham. So I think I might just go heavy on Bayern. I would say though, I would try and spread the team out as much as possible. You can see I'm going to have, I think, 3 Bayern players, 4 Dortmund players, 3 PSG players, and 2 Real players. Just kind of trying to spread it out as much as possible. Obviously, in this case, I think the worst case scenario is 7 players get eliminated, which means I'm going to have to, with my 5 free transfers heading into the final, I'm only going to have 1 player that might not make the starting 11. That's the worst case scenario. So if you can spread it around as much as possible, spread your 11 like 3, 3, 3 and 2. The worst case scenario there is going to be 6 eliminated players, and obviously you get 5 transfers and 3 in the next round to possibly make up for that. So we're not going to have another case like this where we have 8 or 9 players eliminated, which is good. So that's what I'm trying to do here, trying to kind of split it up as much as possible. Again, hoping Guerreiro starts, which would be nice. Hakimi's obviously in there for the attacking threat. Best case scenario for this team is it's 0-0 with PSG and Dortmund in the first game, and I get all the clean sheet points from 3 Dortmund defenders and 2 PSG defenders. But I'd like some attacking returns, I'd like some ball recoveries, and that's the way things are. I do think this front 3 is going to be the best possible front 3 you can get. Would like to get Füllkrug in there, but again, I don't want to load up too much on Dortmund players. So Vinny's in there, Mbappe's in there, and Kane's in there. I think it's going to be Kane as my day 1 captain as well, and then Mbappe's going to take the day 2 captaincy in there too. So quite happy with this team. There's not really too many players I feel like I'm missing out in here. Again, maybe a couple of the Bayern guys that could pick up a goal, someone like Gnabry or Sané or Musiala as well. But again, if Skriniar is not going to play, those are the guys that are going to come in for Phil Foden in there. So again, pretty straightforward transfers. It didn't really take too long to plan these ones, which is good. I do think 1 goalkeeper is going to be enough. There's no real need to have 2 with only 1 game in each one, so I think it's going to be pretty similar points for both the goalies anyway. But that is going to end off this video. Again, hopefully I can grab the top 100 spot, which would be fantastic for me. Last season I finished about 1.5k, which I was really happy with, so I'm flying even higher right now. So I hope everyone else has a very, very good match day. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.